All right, everybody, welcome to the Bandwidth Kaleidoscope Ears podcast. And my buddy James Corbett is here with me, as always. Good to have you here, James.
Thank you once again, Vinny. Looking forward to it.
Always a pleasure, man. I really enjoy it. And today, of course, we're doing Eleanor Rigby. And I want to say one thing right at the top of all this. Paul isn't dead, all right? Don't rush things. Paul is not dead. And I want to bring that up because when I was doing research on the Paul is dead thing, which I actually did, and you know about that because you and I both kind of looked into it, I heard that Paul, the conspiracy theory goes that Paul died in November of 1966. Was it 66? Yeah. And Eleanor Rigby was written in April of 66. Now, the thing is, when you listen to Eleanor Rigby, there's a total sea change in Paul's writing style, which would suggest it would be the new Paul, except this is before supposedly Paul died. Now, another thing, and I want to give you the pleasure of talking about this. You found something, right, that ultimately proves the real truth. Why don't you talk about that for a moment?
Right, yes. It's the, I believe, Wings of Pegasus YouTube channel. Anyway, Brock can show it on screen for people who need to see this person
And
who usually does vocal breakdowns, right?
Mhm.
He examines a lot of people to show that they're using autotune or whatever. But he had one very interesting little video in which he talks about Paul's venology, as in actually the shape of the veins in the hand, which are quite unique, quite identifiable. And he demonstrates, he shows in pictures from before the old Paul and the new Paul have the exact same venology in his hand throughout the years. And the funny thing about that is absolutely no one, and I mean no one, has ever thought to look at that, thought to think about that, thought that that is even something that should be looked at. And that's what I think makes it such a compelling demonstration, is that no, I don't think that the conspirators were, going back and retouching up old photos from 1963 of Paul McCartney and the veins in his hand to try to get them to match the new. I mean, it's so beyond the bounds of credulity that
Yes.
would have been the conspiracy. So I think it's a pretty compelling argument and definitely not one that I had heard before.
James, I tell you what, man, leave it to you to actually find the final answer to it. That really wonderful that you picked up on that. And I tell you the truth, it makes me really happy because when I started, well, when I was a kid, we were already playing, Turn Me On Dead Man backwards. Number nine backwards. So you Turn Me On Dead Man. So that was with me my whole life. And I always felt like, just really heartbroken that the real Paul isn't with us. So there's always been a little shadow of a doubt in the back of my mind, even though I got really cynical about that whole thing. And you've made it, thanks to Wings of Pegasus, and I'll definitely put a link in the show notes for that. So yeah. So just wanted to get that out of the way. I mean, if people want to jump on and say, "Oh no, Paul is dead," well, go check out this video and then get back to me on it. And like I said, I'll put a link in the show notes. All right, so talking about Eleanor Rigby. Now, Paul said himself that this is a 2-chord song. In reality, it isn't. All right, the song is in E minor. And if I'm going to sing the melody, I'm forced to sing the melody for this because I want to demonstrate if it really was a 2-chord song, right? What would happen? So I'm going to do the forbidden in my books anyway. Put on a capo. I'm going to play the E minor and C major chord shapes, all that stuff, but over here, so it sounds in A minor. I hate using capos. When I was in college, jazz school, I was in it was kind of interesting. It was it was like a jazz guitar quartet class where we'd all play different lines and harmonize them and everything. But one day our teacher was giving us a lecture and he just blurted out, "Capos are for monkeys," in his really jazz snob way. And I literally wrote that in my notebook. Capos are for monkeys. And I
Why not?
All right, so it's a 2-chord song, but technically it isn't. All right, a couple of interesting things actually that happens here, but the chorus contains what's called a line cliche, and James, I think you know what I mean when I say that. And if it didn't have this line cliche, which consists of the chords E minor 7, E minor 6, C major 7, E minor, all right, if it didn't have this, oh wait, this is okay. So Eleanor Rigby. So we get into all the lonely people. If this song was just E minor to C, then we'd be stuck on an E minor for the entirety of that section. All the lonely people, where do they all come from? All alone does not happen, right? Doesn't sound even familiar now, right? But there's a line cliche. Right? E minor 7, E minor 6, C major 7. All right, so that already right there proves that Paul isn't dead, and this is a more than 2-chord song.
Wow, done. let me just throw in for the layman out there who hear the word cliche and think it is derogatory or negative. But
oh, good,
in this
good,
case,
good. Thank you.
In this case, it does not mean like that. It is just it is a common thing that happens that is a good thing in this context. As you can hear, it's what gives the character of that section.
Great that you brought that up because I was actually thinking of that. Like cliche sounds it does sound derogatory. And I was saying, what other word could you use? Like trope? No, you can't use trope because that's derogatory, you know? So, yeah, a line tradition. I would refer to it as an embedded line or an overt line, depending on the situation. You know, just line. Basically.
And can you isolate the line just for people who have never understood or heard that before?
In this particular song,
yeah,
isolate the line? Yeah. So what's happening is all against an E. I will say this: it happens against just an E minor chord, but the line changes the nature of the chord itself, and you have to give it a new name when the line happens. So basically, the line is. In the higher octave. All the lonely people, where do they? Actually, it's better if I do the lower line. So that would be, which is actually rather ominous sounding. All the lonely people, where do they all come from? So all the lonely people, where do they all come from? So that even alone, without the E minor chord, really gives it more color than just straight E minor all the way through. And just to name it again, this first chord is E minor 7. That's an E minor with a D note attached to it. E minor with a C sharp note attached to it. Now, bear in mind, I'm using a capo, but I'm calling the notes as if.
I was just going to say, somebody in the comment section is going to go, well, you're playing A minor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're using all the shapes that would have been done here. I'm just shifting it up to A minor only because I can't sing the lines. It's just beyond my range. So if I add the D to an E minor chord, here's E minor. No, nothing changed about it. But if I add this underneath, that's E minor 7. This is the flatted 7th of the E minor chord. This is E minor 6, and that's the natural 6 of the E minor. That's C major 7, or E minor flat 6, which I don't like calling that chord name because it's just not really a usable chord. And my point is that if it was in the high register, you get that ugly sound. And that's not E minor. I don't believe in minor chords with sharp fives. I just don't believe in them. Yeah, this is reminding me of something else where I bumped into something called the mu chord that was talked about with Steely Dan's music. And it was interesting because I ran a student of mine said, Vinny, you got to listen to Larry Carlton, the song Room 335. And I decided, let me look up the chart. I was too lazy to use my ears. It's more jazzy kind of stuff, so it's harder. So I looked it up, and they had like a F major add 9 over C sharp. I'm sorry. What did I say? What do I mean? I'm thinking of well, this chord right here. All right, I've got a C sharp in the bass. Here, right here. All right, this, and this. Yeah, it was an A major add 9 over C sharp. So over C sharp simply means there's a C sharp in the bass. So you have an A major add 9. Now, at first when I saw it, they don't write on a chart mu chord or A mu, right? So I'm like this. I'm trying to figure out different ways to play this, and then all of a sudden it was like the angel sang, and I'm like, oh, it's the mu chord, right? And that's a. This is an. What did I say a moment ago? It's an A chord, and here's the triad. Right? There's the triad, and then you add 2 or 9. Now, if I were to do a C sharp minor 7, I'd get almost the same chord. There's one extra note in it. Or is there? No, it's the same chord. And this you'd call C sharp minor sharp 5, which is really kind of cumbersome, and it's not the way the chord operates in any case. Why did I go off on that trip?
Because we're talking about the C major 7 in
Eleanor Rigby? Right. Yeah. Well, the E minor with a sharp 5. Right. I don't want to call it that. It's more like C major 7. All right. It has to do with the minor ninth problem that you and I discussed, and I won't go into it right now because it's, involved. So anyway, all right, so that's something that's it's called a line cliche because it happens often enough, as you mentioned. An example would be while my guitar gently weeps. It's a slightly different line cliche, but it's similar thing. There's just all this movement going on one chord. One thing I want to mention here too, do all the theory now, I guess. Oh, wait a second. You know what? We got right into this and we didn't do our traditional historical background. So let's rewind and have you talk about.
I like how we dived right in, but yeah. Well, actually, this time I didn't want to go through a lot of recording history and whatever. People can look that up, and I will give them a good resource for this song in particular. It's BeatlesBooks.com, which I'm sure I've seen before, but I haven't referenced a lot. It claims to be the in-depth story behind the songs of the Beatles, and they have this very, very voluminous and deeply detailed article on Eleanor Rigby, and it goes through the songwriting history and the recording history and all of it. So I'll just point people in that general direction. I won't try to summarize it all here, but it goes through the story of the writing of the song, which is interesting because this is one that has been deeply disputed by a number of different people who all claim various bits and pieces. And I wrote that bit.
Yeah,
And
right,
yeah,
right.
John attempted to claim some credit for it at various points in the 70s and in his 1980 interview, but other people dispute that, etc. But we do know that apparently it did start. The initial germ of what became this song started when Paul was living with his then girlfriend, Jane Asher, at her house at 57 Wimpole Street, and he had a little music room. And he said, I was sitting at the piano when I thought of it, just like the comedian Jimmy Durante. The first few bars just came to me, and I got this name in my head. Daisy Hawkins picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Those words just fell out like stream of consciousness stuff, but they started to set the tone of it all, because you then have to ask yourself, what did I mean? It was a strange thing to do. Most people would leave the rice there, unless she's a cleaner. So there was a possibility she's a cleaner in the church. Or is it a little more poignant than that? She might be some lonely spinster of this parish who's not going to get a wedding, and that was what I chose. So this became a song about lonely people. And it goes through the various stages of the writing of the song and interesting stories about it. And William Burroughs being there at various stages of the writing of the song, witnessing
Ah,
it being coming together, etc. But I don't know why I've always found this to be a funny part of the story. Another individual that Paul played this preliminary song to when he was writing it was a professional music teacher. He stated, when I'd written Eleanor Rigby, I tried learning with some proper bloke from the Guildhall School of Music, who I was put on by Jane Asher's mum, Margaret Elliott, an oboe teacher. But I didn't get on with him either. I went off him, as in I was no longer a fan of him, when I showed him Eleanor Rigby because I thought he would be interested, and he wasn't. I thought that he would be intrigued by the little time jumps. And I'm not exactly sure what he means by the little time jumps, but
I do.
at any rate, perhaps you can explain that. But from what I understand, that was the point at which his very, very short-lived experience with a music teacher ended. He did not want any more lessons after that. So, and
Wow.
you know what? Rightfully so.
Yeah.
I don't think he needed them.
I think.
But uh,
Mhm.
I will just say that there is one other part of this article that I found interesting, where he was talking about the chords and even the note. Hold on, let me get the exact quote. He said, okay, Paul attempted to explain the melody line. I can hear a whole song in one chord. In fact, I think you can hear a whole song in one note if you listen hard enough. But nobody ever listens hard enough. Okay, so that's the Joan of Arc bit. I wrote it at the piano, just vamping an E major chord, letting that stay as a vamp, and putting the melody over it. Just
E
danced
major.
over. That's what he says in this quote. E major chord. It has to be wrong, right? It has to be
It
E
has to
major.
be.
But anyway,
Yeah.
letting that stay as a vamp and putting the melody over it, just danced over the top of it. It has almost Asian Indian rhythms. I couldn't think of much more, so I put it away for a day. So
Wow.
perhaps you could
Okay.
explain any of that to us.
Well, what I'm gonna pin a medal on myself here and say that if I had been Paul's music teacher, he would have stayed with me. Um,
Agreed.
I'm trying to find right now. I think I read it on Wikipedia, but there was a different. I've never heard this before anywhere else, but like, and tell me if you ran into it. Uh, Ola Natunji,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes. It was the original Eleanor Rigby, Ola Notunji, which was it's speculated it was inspired by Michael Babatunde Olatunji, the Nigerian composer and political activist whose influential 1960 LP Drums of Passion caught the attention of both manager Brian Epstein and New York DJ Murray the K. It is quite likely that through either Epstein or Murray the K, Paul was familiar with Michael Olatunji and considered incorporating a phonetic alteration of his last name in what eventually became Eleanor Rigby.
Okay, so that's 2 degrees of separation between me and Paul because I played with Olatunji before.
What? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I was involved in this meditation school back in Manhattan in the '80s, and I got involved in the music side of things. And one of the kind of honchos, like he was one of the old school guys in that institution. His name was Gordy Ryan. He's a dear beloved friend of mine. He's the guy that sent me to BC to help facilitate these African drum classes. And Olatunji was living at his place. He was crashing at his place. So every once in a while, we jam with Olatunji. So yeah, that's 2 degrees of
Did
separation
you
from Paul.
mention that on your recent podcast on the Awaken Your Mind channel? Okay, yeah, I do recall that now. I should have known that, but I did not put those pieces together. Let's plug that little podcast appearance of yours because I thought it was a great podcast. So people should check it out. It's called Music, Theories, History, Science, 432 Hertz, and more with VinCognito. It's available right now on the Awaken Your Mind channel on YouTube.
Yeah, he'd probably appreciate the views. He I looked at it; it didn't get much views. He doesn't have
Mm,
many subscribers or anything. So,
no. But it's a good
but
conversation. And yeah, now that I think about it, you did mention Olatunji, didn't you?
yeah, I went into a lot of my history. Well, that wasn't even. I did it. That was a thumbnail sketch of my history. I realized I jumped over a bunch of things, but like I have this very oddball history in my music training, which is great. It taught me flexibility. And so when my senior students, I always tell them, look, the main thing as a musician is you need to learn to be flexible. You need to be able to put yourself in any situation and work with it, you know. So yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. I didn't know. I had no idea he was referring to Babatunde Olatunji. That's amazing. Olatunji, by the way, was semi-famous in the '70s and '80s in America because he'd opened up for like Carlos Santana and the Grateful Dead. I mentioned that in the podcast. Yeah. All right. So anyway, getting back to Eleanor Rigby, an interesting thing happens. You know. That note is not in the C chord. So it turns it into a C major 6. So when I play that song, I usually play C major 6. Now, while I'm doing that, that brings me to the odd little time step. Now, it always caught my ear because it seemed a little odd. All right, so that comes on the no one comes near, right? So if I were to do it without the time step, which would have been, like 4 beats and 4/4, 4 beats and 4/4, 4 beats and 4/4. This remains in 4/4, but the harmonic rhythm, the moment that the chord changes, is a little odd. So it's da, 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 da. Now this is without it. Da, 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 which sounds very nice unto itself, right? But he doesn't do that. What he does listen for that line. So he tags on to the E minor early.
It's like a bar of two.
It's not a bar of two. It's actually just instead of that C chord going 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not technically a bar of two. It's just he's coming in early on the last 2 beats of the C major.
Yeah. I think my brain always interprets it as 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. That's the way my brain kind of interprets that.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, music is just 2 or 3. That's the circle and the square or squaring the circle as what's his name talks about, Randall Carlson, which I got so much out of his squaring the circle lecture. And it really, I emailed you about it because it really turned me on to this thing where 3 is irrational and 2 is rational. Really wild stuff. It's like universal law right there. So yeah, that's a little bit. Now I have to go into the deep stuff. Okay, now there is modal interchange happening here. Of course, there's the nobody will know this nomenclature except for you and me. But part of the aniatonic model is in use there when we hear that line. This comes out of natural minor. If we well, maybe it's not aniatonic. We think in terms of modes, right? This could be the Aeolian or Dorian mode. This must be the Dorian mode. This is the Aeolian mode, and this is anything, any possible E minor situation by itself. So you can see there that we're flowing through the modes right there. But now here's the thing. And you know what? Props to Wikipedia. Whoever contributed to this one little bit, respect, because George Martin said the song is Dorian. And I've contended that it's Dorian for a moment and it's also Aeolian. So maybe I could get people to understand what I'm talking about if I do a screen share of a little graphic I put together. Maybe it'll make it a little more helpful. Now, what a mode is when you take a key, which this is the key of G, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. And this is D. This is the key of D, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, C sharp. Now, what a mode is when you create a root on one of the steps of that scale. This is the Aeolian step. It's called Aeolian, and well, I can actually play it in concert pitch without even with the capo. And Dorian, they sound very similar, except one note sounds a little different, right? So if we look at the G scale, E Dorian would be E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. I'm sorry, did I say Dorian? I meant Aeolian. E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, right? If it was Dorian, that's coming from a totally different key. So we're going to get a new note involved in this scale, not just F sharp, which is there as well, but also a C sharp. And now when we play the scale, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, as opposed to E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. So that's how the modes are operating here. So everybody, put this picture into your mind because I'm going to stop sharing and just memorize this right now. Good work. Okay, thanks. So first of all, there are two different ways to state a mode, and I've actually, it's funny this came up. I was teaching a beginner about modal interchange and the difference between a dramatic modal interchange where the mode initially stated as major and the next one might be minor. That's a dramatic one. In the case of Eleanor Rigby, it's minor, minor. So it's not too jarring. But the case I'm talking about is Norwegian Wood, where we have a D chord. Right? Now, for all intents and purposes, that's just a D chord with a melody on it. Right? So in this particular case, it's not the chords that's defining the mode. It's the melody that's defining it because there's no chord movement. Does that make sense? This is happening in the verse of Eleanor Rigby, all right, where we're on an E minor chord for most of the melody. Now in that shot, if you had it memorized, that note, if I was an E minor, that note would be a C sharp. Right? If it was Aeolian, if the melody was Aeolian, you get which is kind of dark, and it's doesn't sound good. Um, which is possibly why he, by instinctively saying the C sharp instead of the C, it just sounds a little clunky too.
Yeah, for the benefit of those who are inclined to point this type of thing out, yeah, he probably didn't even know what the Dorian mode was, but
Right, exactly.
he knew
Yeah.
that note sounded better than the C.
Yeah, he corresponds to a saying I have. Some people have music theory in their blood and their bones, and they don't need to think about any of this stuff. They just do it. Um,
Well,
yeah,
as we've discussed before, and let's put this on the record. Yeah, I think the music theory side of it is the name and this putting a label on things. But
bingo.
for people who intuitively hear and understand that, maybe they don't know what it's called and they don't know it's Dorian mode, but they know that's the right note. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have a word for sky, but you don't need to like know the word sky to know that there's a sky. Um, and yeah, that's what I've been. That's been my latest theme. Is that it's almost a joke. All this like heady music theory talk. All you're doing is putting a label on a thing, giving something a name. You know.
and that
Uh,
does help because then you can start to have pattern recognition and put things in categories and understand what is happening. That, I mean, again, it's not to denigrate that concept, but it just, yeah,
yeah.
if you happen to be a naturally born genius, then yeah, maybe you don't need to know all of this stuff, but
Yeah.
but it doesn't hurt to
Absolutely.
know it.
Brian Wilson is another example of that. Like what he wrote was amazing, and he wasn't a music theory guy. You know. Um, so yeah. So now, if the folks out there remember have that chart memorized like I asked them to do, the chords of the key of if I was in Dorian and I had a chord with a C sharp in it, that C sharp note that defines Dorian, that tells you you're in Dorian. In fact, you could get away with doing right there. That chord is not in Dorian. And in this case, instead of the melody defining the mode, it's now the chords. E minor to C specifically comes out of the key of G. All right. E minor is a sixth step. The sixth step root, E minor in the key of G, is E Aeolian. So there's that. Did that make sense to you, James?
It makes sense to me. I can imagine
Good.
some people would be quite lost, but they can review and rewind as need be.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's there's no way around it. If I'm going to talk the theory, it's going to get a little stratospheric
Yep.
at times.
I assume that is why people who return because they want this. So
Yeah.
let's not shy away from it.
Yep. All right. So that's the first modal interchange. Actually, it's both modal interchanges, both the verse and the chorus. The verse, the melody states Dorian until the chord changes. That distinctive note is a Dorian note. And that's the distinctive Aeolian note. Here's the Dorian note. Here's the Aeolian note, which is perfect there. Anyway, it brings in the real dark sadness of Aeolian without doing that silly melody. Right, which is so it's amazing the world of difference a note could make.
Yeah. A lesser songwriter probably would have used that note. I mean,
Yes.
it does take that sort of instinctual genius to move that one note and to understand
Yeah.
the difference that makes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, oh God, if I could remember his name, the British classical composer that talks about the Beatles. You know who I'm talking about, James.
Oh, yes. Howard Goodall.
Howard Goodall talked about, I don't know if it was this song, but he said, this particular melody is Dorian, and therefore it gives it almost like like an ancient folk music sound,
Mm. Mm.
I think, yeah, with green sleeves.
Mm. Yeah, right, right, right,
Right.
right. Is that Dorian?
That's Dorian. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's very interesting, because when you think about that, which century did that come out of? It's way past the days of the Greek modes. It had to be during the era of Baroque,
Hmm.
right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
right,
Mm. Uh,
maybe,
maybe. I think it
maybe
was a bit before that, but yeah.
it may have been, yeah. But point being that modal writing is not is like the pentatonic scale we demonstrated, right? That it's intrinsic, you know, and the modes in a way are intrinsic too. Like you don't have to be a big music theorist to write a mode. You might do it by accident without knowing, but again, it's almost a natural thing to do. One thing I did like is now I'm going to go here to E minor. All right, so what I noticed is, and this is proof that when we get to the C chord, where in E Aeolian, okay, um, in the key of G, the fourth step, C, defines the Lydian scale, okay? That's from the same key as the Dorian, okay, as the Aeolian. That's from the same key as the Aeolian, all right? Uh, am I doing this? Yeah, this is correct. So now I want to show you what the string section does.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
Right?
Lydian. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. A normal C scale on that, which a bad composer would write a C scale there, all right, would be, which is totally not in the key. If I played a C scale, it's not going to sound good, right? Right? It's just weird.
So C Lydian is the same notes as E Aeolian because they're both from
Right.
the key of
Exactly.
G. But
They're both from
if
the key of
we were
G.
if this was a Dorian song, we were just thinking E Dorian, then it would be D major. And so what would you play on the C?
There is no C in the key of
Yeah,
G major.
right.
It's C
It's C
sharp.
sharp.
Right.
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 Hmm.
Right.
So George Martin knew that this was
Oh,
Aeolian.
he damn well knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He had to know that. I don't know why he kind of made it sound like a broad. He gave it a broad stroke. He just said, "Oh yeah, this is a Dorian melody, or this is Dorian, the Dorian mode." And I've always like, as soon as I heard him say that, it's like that's only 50% true. It moves from Dorian to Aeolian. But yeah, he had to know that. All right. Uh, and anybody with a good pair of ears would have, if he wanted that kind of off the C chord, they would have like squeaked out the Lydian scale. It would have sounded the best for them. All right. I didn't go deep into, because of all today's screw ups, I didn't go deeply into the strings at all. But I'm going to dig up, you could find it, I'm pretty sure, on YouTube, just the string section without any vocals. And it's cool to listen to. But one thing about the strings, uh, that Paul suggested the same thing for the song yesterday is no vibrato on the strings, right? He didn't want it to sound sappy and romantic. And probably in yesterday, they could have gotten away with vibrato, but not this song. Not this song. And one thing I did notice, now we're getting outside of the theory spectrum and we're just talking about the performance. If you listen to Paul singing, it's hard to find a vibrato in his voice. And that's one thing he excels at, like he's a great vibrato. but it's almost like he's going out of his way to avoid it, right? So there's something to be said about this lack of vibrato. So I'm going to just demonstrate for people who don't know what a vibrato is, right? I could hit a G note here. Now, the way can't really do it on guitar, you can on violin, but the guitar's frets don't make it work well. The violins, to create a vibrato, swing their finger from side to side. And you might hear a little bit of a, like a vibration, but guitars usually go up. That's vibrato. It's kind of like making a little sine wave around the note, which there's virtually no guitarists that don't use vibrato. It's just a standard fare. I try to avoid it sometimes because it's so, especially on bending notes, it sounds so boomer guitar.
I was just going to say, you say nobody plays without vibrato, but I think a lot of the new generation people specifically avoid it.
Specifically avoid it. I get it. I don't like bending vibratos, but I do like when without bending the string. I like this. Now, my favorite guitar player, Larry Carlton, goes side to side like the classical guys. But his rig has so much great tone that you can actually hear, and it's beautiful. It's actually a beautiful, beautiful vibrato. So as far as his vocal goes, continuing down the line, he's using what I call his objective reporter voice. And I believe that the only time I've heard this vocal style from Paul is on this record. It's kind of like, you'll notice this for both this and For No One, right? He's just reporting the facts. He's telling you what happened. He doesn't care. He's just telling you this happened. And there's no emotional involvement, which I think is profound in songs that have this kind of deep sadness to them, you know?
And the vocals are so, I was listening to it today, and the vocals are so upfront, so present, the way it's been mixed. And I mean, maybe that's just the 1960s production, but specifically on this song, his vocals really jump out.
Yeah. Probably that also had to do with the fact that there's no band and it's just a string quartet.
Yeah,
There's not even a guitar. He doesn't play acoustic guitar in it at all. I love this this moment in Paul's singing because it's so it's so perfect for those two songs, For No One and Eleanor Rigby. So I thought I'd bring that up. As I said, I was trying to think of songs where Paul does that in the future or the past, and I can barely find anything like that. You know, it's a subtle thing, but it's on Revolver. It's clearly noticeable. He's not being maudlin when he sings. You know, oh, Eleanor Rigby, it's so sad. You know, he's just like, this happened. You know, and there's a grave, and that's the story about Eleanor and the Father Mackenzie.
And that fits in with when people go into that BeatlesBooks.com link and read the story of the song and how it came together. He, in his telling of the tale, often stressed that this was him in his writerly mode. He was trying to be a writer, and he was drawing on his experiences doing a Bob a job sort of volunteer sort of thing that he was doing, working with old people and, you know, helping them out. And he'd listen to their stories, and he wanted to try to take that and condense it. And he had one particular lady that he worked with in mind, trying to sort of capture her experience, her life essence. And so this was generally and genuinely an attempt to try to be, you know, put something into a poetic frame.
Great. And, you know, as much as John will denigrate, you should, you shouldn't write songs about other people. You can only write about yourself. I think personally, this is one of Paul's best set of lyrics. It's just incredibly good. He writes you a novel and puts you there. You know, I could feel the whole thing.
But who wrote what? And there's, as I say, there's a lot of back and forth between various people and what they did or didn't write. But there's one actually kind of revealing part it's a story about John and Paul's friend, Pete Shotton, who had been present on the day, recalled the details. Most of the song was written in John's music room at his Kenwood home during one of my weekend visits. The other three Beatles and their wives had come over for dinner, and then afterwards we'd all gathered around the television at Sin's beloved library. This particular night, John grew bored with the TV program. He said, let's go upstairs and play a bit of music. Paul, George, and Ringo then duly followed John upstairs to a room adjoining his little recording studio. Paul, as always, had brought along his guitar, which he then got out and began strumming. I've got this little tune here, he stated. It keeps popping into my head, yada, yada. We all sat around making suggestions, throwing out some old line or phrase, all of us, with the exception of the Beatle who proposed the session in the first place, i.e. John. So, so anyway, make of Pete's story what you want. But at some point, apparently, I believe in Pete's telling of the tale, the way, because they were stuck on the last verse, how do we end this? What should be the ending? And I believe Pete suggests that it was his idea that she should die and then Father Mackenzie should bury Eleanor Rigby, and that brings them together, but too late to have solved their loneliness.
Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah.
And apparently John said something to the effect of, I don't think you get what we're really going for here, Pete, or something like that. And Paul says, I continued to feel more than a bit uptight about Lennon's unwarranted sarcasm. Sorry, Pete was saying this. Maybe my great suggestion had not been so great after all, though John was to take credit in one of his last interviews for most of the lyrics. My recollection is that Eleanor Rigby was one Lennon-McCartney classic in which John's input was virtually nil. So,
Wow.
again,
Yeah.
take from John's 1970s and 1980 interview whatever you will, but generally a lot of it was, I think, not accurate and probably would have been corrected over the decades, but that's all we have to go with now. But yeah, so apparently the perfect ending for this story, as you say, one of Paul's best lyrics, perfect way to join the stories together and to give it a conclusion. And John apparently did not like it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I think he would have. I think the thing is, he was just like, we're the professionals. You're not a professional. You don't know
That's
what you're
the sense that I'm getting from this story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, what strikes me, which poignant about that era in the 60s and what's scary about this era is that picture a bunch of people watching TV today. I've never seen anybody get up and say, I'm bored with this, because they're so hypnotized by the damn TV.
Yeah.
Back in those days, the TV didn't have the power to hypnotize people like it does now. But I never see people get, I walk into, if I walk into somebody's house and they have a big widescreen, I'm like, I can't not look at it,
Yeah. To be fair, though, John apparently kept the TV on pretty much 24/7. So
Yeah.
maybe at some point he had to get up and do something else.
Well, I keep YouTube's on 24/7 just about. And for me, it's just, I'm a single man and it's nice to feel like somebody's hanging out, talking to me, oh, by the way, one of the I always bring up this astute observation you made about John, but it's worthy of bringing up again here because this is the one song that Paul just breaks right into it. No intro. So,
yeah. And in fact, I was just watching a reaction video of someone listening to Eleanor Rigby for the first time. Really? Well, anyway, she certainly, at the very least, if she hadn't heard it before, she acted very well surprised by the immediate introduction and immediately singing and full on. So she like, hold on, I got to go back because I was not ready for that. And I think that very much is the effect of this. It is immediately straight into it and with a particularly busy string introduction as well underneath the lyrics.
Oh, yeah. The beauty of the strings is that it's not the same every time around.
Yes, exactly.
Martin changes.
Definitely add to the emotional feel of each section.
Right.
He's add up. Yeah.
And of course, it's pretty much thought of that Paul kind of stood over Martin's shoulder, when he was writing these parts. So Paul probably, it's really super likely that Paul had input into it. Yeah.
Yes, and I believe they go into that in this article as well, so people can read more again about the production of it, etc. But yes, I think the obvious thing to state is in that final verse, the dramatic moment of her death and the burial, and of course that's when he starts doing the Bernard Herrmann inspired. He wanted the players to play the strings as aggressively as possible and to not move away from the mics. And of course, these trained classical players did not want to, didn't even understand what he was trying to get them. No, we can't play like that. What? But he
Yeah.
very much wanted that very sharp attack on those lines.
Also, the string players are very kind of uptight because in typical recording sessions, the mics wouldn't be like right up close to their instruments, and that made them like a little. They felt cramped in by it. They complained about it.
Yes, in fact, yes. I believe Jeff Emmerich has a quote in here. Jeff Emmerich took note of what he said and began thinking how to accomplish that. He wanted the strings to sound biting, was Paul's instruction.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
string quartets were traditionally recorded with just one or two microphones placed high, several feet up in the air, so that the sound of the bows scraping couldn't be heard. But with McCartney's directive in mind, I, Jeff Emmerich, decided to close mic the instruments, which was a new concept. The string musicians were horrified. One of them
yeah.
gave
There
me
you
a look
go.
of disdain, rolled his eyes to the ceiling, and said under his breath, "You can't do that, you know." His words shook my confidence and made me start to second guess myself, but I carried on regardless, determined to at least hear what it sounded like.
How many times was the Beatles crew told you can't do that? You know, especially
In
the
fact,
classical
wasn't that a
guys.
song?
Yeah,
Maybe that's where John got it from.
yeah, yeah.
You can't do
I
that.
think one of the biggest sports of the classical guys who came in is the guy who played the soprano trumpet for Penny Lane.
Soprano? Piccolo?
I think it's a soprano trumpet. I think it's called a soprano. It's a high pitched trumpet, is what it is. And also the guy who played the French. I wish I knew his name, but the fellow that played the French horn solo in For No One. He was also a good sport. He wasn't being like all snotty. I'm classical and you're not. You know. It's funny though when you think about it. You know, like these classical guys. It surprised me that did these classical guys ever play avant-garde pieces with orchestras? I mean,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it's like
Right.
I think if it
But again,
was
they would take it more seriously if it was from a composer, not one of
right,
these
exactly,
rock
yeah,
groups. Yeah, I
right,
understand.
yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a question then that may not be answerable, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I would think that if I was in a crunch and I had 2 minutes to convince some skeptical, know-nothing young person who does not understand the brilliance of the Beatles, if I had 2 minutes to convince them, I would say, "Do you think you know the Beatles? Listen to this," and I would play them Eleanor Rigby. And I think I would do that precisely because this is a song, and other people have said it. This is a song that absolutely, completely separated them from their peers. There was no one
Mm,
at the time who could have or
mm,
would have done anything like this in the way that they
yeah,
did this. And it must have been like a lightning bolt when it hit.
yeah.
Um, I mean, what is your impression of that? What is the fundamental change that this song represents in the Beatles' oeuvre?
Yeah, because obviously they used a string quartet before, you know, early
Not an
in their
octet,
career.
but yes.
Right. The octet, right? String octet, or a double. The way I saw it written was a double string quartet. So I don't know if that's actually considered an octet or not. Like maybe there's different instrumentation for a string octet, or I don't know, but it's double string quartet. So that can't be the deciding factor, right? Um, well, it
I
depends
would
on
say even to this day, I would say I mean, there's just nothing like this in popular music that you would hear on the radio. You know that
Yeah,
there's no one that's doing this in this way on that large a scale for that many people, and I don't know. It still to this day stands out as a track that I think would stop most people in their tracks if they've never heard of it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think it's just. I think it's a lot of factors, and a part of it has to do would connect with how long the person's musical history goes back to. Like if you're describing this to a person, a younger person, I don't know if they'd really get like, in the context, it was just like when Revolver came out, it was like, what, Um, but I think part of the impact of that song is one, believe it or not, the way the strings are recorded, because they really are like so present, and it's very emotional. It sounds like it could be a film score, you know. Um,
It's emotional, but as you say, it doesn't use the vibrato. It doesn't play into the emotion of it. The strings are almost reporterly, almost detached again,
yeah, 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 yeah.
except
But
for the
they,
moment of the biting strings in the final verse.
yeah, there is a, yeah, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. Um, but that's actually as part of the beauty of the expressive quality of music.
Mm.
Uh, could you imagine the song being played any other way? With a band or.
Well, I was listening to a jazz cover of this shortly before we started recording, and yeah, I mean, okay, I get it, and it's fine, but of course, it does not have the emotional wallop that this song has.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. So if the strings are just reporting and the voice is just reporting, how is it that it has emotional wallop?
I think it's the lyrics. I think it's that the voice is so present and the lyrics are so immediately impactful. I mean, immediately you're interested in this person picking up rice in the church. And then as it develops, and then of course when you get to the final verse, I mean it's just so powerful that I don't think they can be denied, even though it is in this reporterly voice.
Yeah, I think you're onto something on that regard. I mean, it pulls you immediately. Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in a church where a wedding has been. What's the next line?
Lives in a dream.
Lives in a dream. That already sets up. Oh, this poor Eleanor Rigby woman. You know. And now we want to hear like, why is she in this? Why is she in this condition? Why are things like this for her? And the song just gets sadder and sadder as it goes. So it's really cool. You get that yin yang, you know, just a reporter voice and not hysterical violin parts, but the lyrics are, yeah, that's a great point, James. It's lyrically impactful. It just takes you there.
Yeah.
It
And
just
in 2 minutes and change. I mean, again, this
unbelievable.
is the absolute. And I have watched several reactions videos to this, and every single one of them is like, they have total disbelief. Wait, it's over? What? It was just
Yeah,
starting. What is happening? It was two
yeah,
minutes. That can't be it. There has to be more. But no, it is so incredibly powerful, and I think that is part of the power of the song. Is its economy? It is straight in, straight to the point, and makes its point extremely well, and then gets out, which is not something that I think modern songwriters are particularly good at doing.
yeah. Well, there's a lot they're not good at doing. I hate to say, but they don't know how to modulate. They don't know how to use seventh chords. They don't know how to bring blues into anything. It's just really. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's amateur stuff that's polished. That's polished up. I'm being
But
a
have
snob
you
here.
heard Angine de Poitrine?
Oh, by the way, who was it? These guys are going viral right now, and Wings of Pegasus did one on them. Our
Mhm.
favorite piano guy, what's his name? The passionate
David
piano
Bennett
guy. Not David
or
Bennett, the other guy.
Charles Cornell. I
Charles
think David Bennett
Cornell.
might have as well, actually.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, guys, come on, you really don't hear what this is. Now, James, I will say this. All right, I tend to be really stodgy, and all my life I've been this way. Like when I heard the psychedelic sound change into more American style music, I didn't like it. I didn't like any of it. Now I hated disco, for example. Disco was a threat to me. And now I listen to disco songs and I go, oh, that's kind of pleasant. Or, hey, wow, they did some great horn arrangements in this, or interesting chord progression. I mean, nowadays I wish they'd bring that back, even though I hated it back then. It's like, give me something, give me something. Listen to what Sting said. surprise me in the first 16 bars, and I'll listen to you. You know. So yeah, so that's my rant against the younger composers. But there's going to be a change. It'll happen. It'll happen.
Yes. And we'll know it when we hear a song like Eleanor Rigby again.
Yeah. Wow. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Mm.
But yeah, the Angine, whatever. You and I both agreed that it's kind of like grating and not likable. And then I immediately sent you Chasing Smoke by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And in comparison, that's a mellifluous, beautiful little piece of music. And I actually do believe that anyway, without the comparison. I think it's a great piece of music. But yeah, I just wasn't like it. I don't know. It just really irritates me that everybody's going bananas over these guys, and it's like, do you really want to listen to these guys like for hours at a time? Would you be into that? It would make me like want to go out and murder or something. It's just like nuts. But anyway, that's me.
I agree, for the record, and I can't believe that it's an organic phenomenon that they've become so viral. But
I do want to say, I forgot to say, I'm a stodgy person, and maybe I'm just stodgy about these guys, and maybe like months down the line, I'll say, oh yeah, they actually are pretty good. But right now, I just can't stand them, and to me, it's just a sign of the decline of Western civilization. That's why when Rick Beato did the video on them, my only comment was, what would Bach say? Not that everything should be Bach, but everything should strive for beauty, not trendiness or coolness or avant-gardeness or whatever else. Like, you should go for what is beautiful, what really stirs a person. That's my thing right now.
I'm with you. I agree. It's much harder to do than simply shocking people or doing something weird. So finally, on Eleanor Rigby, I guess I only have one other question. Is there anything of note about the song structure, which has been helpfully annotated in this Beatles books article? The song structure consists of an intro, verse, chorus, bridge, bracket intro, verse, chorus, bracket outro format, or ABBC, BBC, ABBC.
Well, where'd the intro come from?
Well, beginning the proceedings with the bridge, thereby making it an intro to the song, is something that had been done before in their catalog, such as in Can't Buy Me Love, which suggests a possible credit to George Martin for this arrangement element, since it was his suggestion on the earlier song.
Yeah. I didn't bother to check out the A and B sections of this, so because of all the headaches I had today. But it sounds pretty straightforward to me. It sounds almost like A B A B A B to me.
Yeah. Essentially, yes. I mean, I guess, but yes, the refrain, "Oh, look at all the lonely people," is, in a sense, I mean, is that the chorus? And then what's the intro? What's the bridge?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thought. Really, the name of the song is Eleanor Rigby, but the name is not in the chorus, right? It's in the verses. Yeah. But I would call "Look at all the lonely people" the chorus, because again, it's the part that sticks with you the most.
Well, then what is all the lonely people, or is that just part of the verse in your estimation?
Oh, see, I never bothered to separate that.
Because I think they're treating that as the chorus, and then all the lonely people is like a bridge / intro / outro.
Oh yeah. Oh, all right, I get that. That makes sense to me. Yeah. But to me, it's like the way it sounds. It was no big deal compiling the different parts in what order.
Yeah, it goes straightforwardly. I don't think anyone stops to think about it or question it. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I have to once again be in awe, like you said earlier, of like 2 minutes and change the song is, and what a profound impact. Damn. Well, James, I honestly thought there wasn't much
20
to
minutes.
talk about this song.
We'll be done this one in no time.
I even I usually have extensive notes. I really, I just covered a few subject ideas in the notes, but I didn't write all the notes that I normally do. And then I was thinking to myself, well, I told James it might be a short one, so it's okay. Over an hour. So any of you that stuck around for this, God bless you.
You're our kind of people. I think we say this at the end of every podcast at this point. But
yes, yeah. Sir. Indeed. And I just want to bring up, James, you have a website, CorbettReport.com, and deals with geopolitics. And I've never heard anyone explain the world situation more clearly than you have presently and in the past. And I'm going to move out of the way. That red book over there was recently published by James Corbett. Thank you. Yeah. Reportage, not reportage.
Get it right. Reportage. Yeah.
And it's a wonderful book. I read it, and James, you have a great way of, I don't know, just describing what are like pretty heavy events and pretty detailed events, but you do it in a way that makes it like you want to keep reading. So good job on you for that.
And let me throw some props to my editor, Susan, who takes my scrawling and forms it into the nice way that it
absolutely
flows. Yeah.
I tell you what, man, if I wasn't a musician, I'd probably wind up being an editor.
Do
you remember I said on this page there's a misspelling of such and such word, right?
Yeah. I remember that very well, yes. And it has been corrected, so it should be okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But
great.
yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
So, all right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. James, as always, wonderful to hang with you, man. And we'll do it again soon.
Very much looking forward to it. Thank you for doing what you do, Vinny.
Yes, sir. And oh yeah, well, if you want guitar lessons, you can talk to me. If you want music theory specific lessons, that you can talk to me about that too. VinCognito@gmail.com, and VinCognito.com is my website. So that's it for tonight. Good night, everyone. Good night, James.
Good night.